Are you serious? Are you serious? Everybody grab a cup of coffee, some Jamaican McCrazy, and calm down. At least Jersey Dolphins is. Well, let me just say something real quick to all of you guys. Welcome. This is a prophecy update, a prophecy alert. In lieu of, and the things that are happening right now in the White House and happening in Afghanistan and happening around the world, we are seeing a Luke 21:25 moment where the world is in chaos or perplexity. Okay. And it's certainly what the Bible said would happen. Confusion. Now, who's the author of confusion? Lucifer himself. We're going to talk about this in just a second. First, let me put a shout out right now to www.agewithpaul.com. What? That's right, agewithpaul.com. Ancient civilizations already have discovered, guys, the solutions to modern day problems that we're still trying to solve. You see, one of those secrets being that the fountain of youth could have been really, and there's no such thing as a fountain of youth, but tied to a little known spice called turmeric. Well, this is why I love turmeric, and you can put turmeric on your food. But www.agewithpaul.com. BioTrust made a product, Ageless Body by BioTrust. And you can get this at www.agewithpaul.com. It has a ton of turmeric in it. 46 times more better absorbent to turmeric than if you had turmeric spice that was put on your food. You can't eat enough turmeric to accomplish the vitality and the youthful feeling and the changes in your hair, your teeth, your fingernails, your joints. I mean, there's nothing like this. 46 times condensed in these tablets. Amazing. Go right now to www.agewithpaul.com. That's www.agewithpaul.com. That's why they've sold 2 million bottles of this. What? Oh, yes. It's crazy. Well, good to see everybody here. This is a prophecy alert. We want to talk to you about how does the events unfolding in Afghanistan right now and the entire Middle East, do they have anything to do with the prophetic? And the answer is absolutely yes. Now, Afghanistan is not in the Bible. I mean, as far as the name of the country, it's not in the Bible. But the region certainly is, okay? And the things that are happening now, I believe that the Taliban taking over Afghanistan has opened a door to Ezekiel 38 and the Battle of Gog and Magog. And it even includes China, even though China's not mentioned in Ezekiel 38, or is it? First of all, there is no specific biblical reference to Afghanistan, like I said. But Afghanistan has spent 30 of the last 42 years fighting the superpowers. They fought the Russians, and then they fought the Americans, and they defeated both. Unbelievable. How'd they do it? It's impossible for a ragtag bunch of absolutely upside-down ideology and warped spirituality, brutal mentality, living in the caves to dominate two superpowers. But they did. How come? Because they are satanically charged by the spirit of the Antichrist. And their job is to help bring about the Antichrist to power by riding and galloping the red horsemen of the apocalypse. The New World Order, the Illuminati, has already worked very diligently to create a one world government. And they're building some unlikely bedfellows to help them accomplish that, including the Taliban. Now, remember, folks, God is in control. Remember what David Wilkerson said, God is in control. So does the Taliban taking over Afghanistan have anything to do to fulfill biblical prophecy? Well, let me just remind you of something. No specific reference to Afghanistan in the Bible. Yet, could God be using the Taliban in Afghanistan to help bring Ezekiel 38 right around the corner? I'm going to give you an example. The Balfour Declaration was made by the United Kingdom, and they made this declaration in 1917, in which the British supported an establishment in what's known as the Palestine area for a national home for the Jewish people. Now, this was just before the end, or right at the end of World War I. They made the declaration, they signed the document, but it didn't happen until after World War II and 1948. It took 30 years. But it happened. And Israel became a nation, and then had to fight right out of the blocks to hang on to it, and then win the 6-day war against 5 enemies at once to reunify Jerusalem. And now they've been around for a generation, 73 years. But all of this was fulfilled in Ezekiel 37 when it said, he saw the dry bones rise up as a mighty army, a mighty nation of Israel. And it happened. 3,000-year prophecy. You get your first declaration, which opened the door to prophecy of Ezekiel 38, 1948. Now we're at Ezekiel 38. And what is the door that opens to allow prophecy to happen right around the corner? Well, I believe it's the red horsemen of the apocalypse who are taking peace from the earth right now, the Taliban in Afghanistan. And here's probably the most likely scenario, guys, if you think this over. The military hardware that once again we're going to leave for a radical regime, just like we did in 2014, when Obama pulled us out of Iraq and left all the equipment that formed a group called ISIS that just tore through Iraq and Syria. We're about to see this again as Joe Biden is leaving the U.S. equipment for a group called the Taliban. What will they do with it? Well, they're going to be even way more funded, better trained, and out of those 300,000 Afghanistan soldiers that we, the Americans, trained, how many of them will now be recruited and be a part of the Taliban? Thousands of them. I'll say 100,000 of them. And they will help the Taliban spread this wickedness around the world. You will see terrorist attacks, I believe, in the United Kingdom, Australia, Canada, the United States, many places in the Western world. But that isn't really the goal of the Taliban. The goal is still Jerusalem. That's the goal of all of them. They will all consolidate for one purpose: to try to destroy the nation of Israel and to take the Temple Mount for their own. And so that's what this door has just opened. To be quite frank with you, China now has a 48-mile border with Afghanistan, enough to march a 200 million man army through if it wanted to. But certainly an open door now into Afghanistan. China will be help funding the Taliban along with Russia. Russia is mentioned in Ezekiel 38. They are the band called Gomer, which is a southern band of rebel fighters in southern Russia. Also Tagarma, which is another group of fighters in southern Turkey, and Ethiopia, Libya, and certainly are mentioned, along with Persia, which is not only Iran, but Persia also encompassed a significant amount of Iraq and Syria, and even a little bit in Afghanistan. So what will happen is China will have this great opportunity to, anytime they want to move right through They can go through Afghanistan, into Iraq, into Iran, into Syria, and at the doorstep of Israel. Now, they're not mentioned. They are not mentioned in Ezekiel 38, but the red dragon is certainly mentioned in the book of Revelation. And so when you start talking about the prophecies of the last days, you know there will be others. And the Bible does say in Ezekiel 38, besides the 5 that are pretty obvious, and others, it says. Let me read it for you. Ezekiel 38 says, "And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him." So God is saying to the prophet Ezekiel, prophesy against this demon spirit, this antichrist spirit, this anti-Israeli spirit, and call it out and prophesy against it, and say, "Thus saith the Lord God, behold, I am against thee, O Gog. Behold, I'm against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. And I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws. And I will bring thee forth, and all thy army, horses and horsemen, and all them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords." So when you see that, it's in reference usually to the jihad. So who are these people that are going to pull together this band riding horses? Well, of course, the Taliban likes to ride horses, and they still do. But they are Persia. Like I said, Persia, the Persian Empire was Iran, Iraq, Syria, and part of Afghanistan. Also, there's Ethiopia. We know who they are. And that includes Sudan. So keep that in mind. Ethiopia was not just Ethiopia at this point. It was Ethiopia and the Sudans, both Sudan and South Sudan. So it was a large area. And that's where there is a lot of jihadis being bred right now. And then it says Libya. Well, we know since the fall of Muammar Gaddafi, that has become a haven for terrorists. And with them, all of them that have shields and helmets. Gomer is a band of fighters from southern Russia. And Togarmah, that's a group from southern Turkey in the north quarters. And all of his bands, and many people with thee. So this is the recruiting process. This is where other jihadists from lots of nations build a coalition. Well, who is going to help build this coalition? Apparently, it is the Taliban. And the Taliban has now, after defeating 2 superpowers, nobody wants to go in there and be the third one to fail. And so China says, "Oh, we're not going to fight these guys. We're going to buy these guys," and use that spirit of the Antichrist to help the communist spirit come together in an unholy alliance against Israel and against the church of the Lord Jesus Christ. This is why the Bible tells you what is about to take place. The battle of Gog and Magog. Now, Afghanistan, no doubt, is going to be, in my opinion, going to become the biggest terrorist jihadi training center in the world. And they'll have the money. They have the fighters. They have fought for 30 years out of 42. They believe they are divinely chosen. And so you're going to see jihadists from all over the world gravitate there to be a part of something bigger than themselves. So remember what it says in Luke 21, when it says, "There shall be signs in the sun, the moon, the stars, distress of nations with perplexity. The sea and the waves will be roaring. And men's hearts will fail them for fear, for looking after those things that are coming upon the earth, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken." But there is going to be this confusion, this perplexity, this wiping away of the borders and kingdoms spiritual kingdoms take place. No longer really identified by nation, but by spiritual kingdoms. And look for China to participate in this process of forming a new world order. Did the Taliban in Afghanistan open the door to Ezekiel 38? Well, it could take a few years before we find that out. I don't expect that to happen if it is, I don't expect that to happen in the next few months. But I will say this, Bible prophecy is accelerating so fast, folks. It's accelerating so fast that people who thought you would see Afghanistan fall in 11 days, who thought you would see 15,000 Americans maybe going to be left behind in Afghanistan, who thought they would see this moment that the red horsemen of the apocalypse would be galloping. Maybe the late, great Chuck Missler was correct when he said to me, when I asked him in October of 2015, what is the next big biblical prophecy milestone that's going to happen? Is it the peace deal? Is it the third temple? Is it this or is it that? His answer was Ezekiel 38. We shall see. I'll be back with more in just a moment. Are you serious? Give your life to Jesus Christ. We had 12 people saved. I should have had that Chuck Missler interview ready where I could just play that little bit. Is it possible I could actually find it? Can you guys hang on one second? I should have had that ready. I didn't know I was going to bring him up to just hit my mind. But Chuck, let's just see. Interview with Paul Begley. Okay, let's see. See if I can just find that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, it's 4 parts. And which one is it that he says that? I do not know. Maybe here. Give me a moment. Advice, actually, and the third temple. Pray, let alone.
Was the Antonia Fortress, the whole, and Bob Cornelius, and that's a huge bombshell. Bob's hypothesis that what we call the Antonia Fortress.
I've seen that he's going to be one of your guests. You've got
family. He's one of our own.
Got a great lineup.
So we're it's our big deal. Once and
you can watch it from register. Home. Great lineup of Bible scholars and just going to be a powerful thing.
Hang on,
and
folks.
I think the white horse, the red horse, the black or chloros horse.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And it is one. It's become a hot topic because there are actually 4 very different aspects of what's coming. We emphasize on the white horse the attempt. We regard the white horse as a mistaken identity. It's amazing many people assume that because it's white, it's Christ. No, not at all. It's the Antichrist.
Antichrist.
So and so we really dig into that. But the red horse is on war is one of the best summaries that we've been able to pull together on the whole history of warfare.
Wow.
In terms of the classics. And so each one of these has been rendered into a little 100-page book that is we're packing the 4 books it's because they're small little books. They're wonderful giveaways. They're inexpensive that way, and so we think they're going to be a big deal for the holidays because they make a nice, they make a nice gift. The Black Horse is a discussion of inflation. It's amazing how many people don't really understand the dynamics of inflation. And so we really get into the whole issue of banking, and many people don't realize what the Black Horse is really all about. And and then of course the last one is pretty grim.
Yeah.
So anyway, the Four Horsemen make quite a package.
That sounds like
they took my verbal presentations and repackaged them into books, and they've done really a beautiful job for me.
I'm going to have to have somebody do that for me. I'm going to have to get somebody to do that for me, because I tell you, when I try to write books, which I have, it's a lot. It's a whole different. To me,
we're talking here with Chuck Missler. This is from October the 20th, 2015. And actually, I was in Canada at the time interviewing Chuck Missler in New Zealand. And I then ended up in the hospital in Canada the very next day with hepatitis A, deathly ill. But Chuck Missler went on to be with the Lord not long after this interview. I think he might have lived about another 6 months no, I don't even know if he lived that long. It wasn't that long. He really didn't live long after this interview. It's the only time I ever interviewed Chuck Missler. But let's listen a little bit more, because he is very, I was hoping we could get to the part, and maybe it's in part 4.
I'm much better at just speaking. Speaking.
Yeah, I am too. Frankly, I am too. I think in terms of PowerPoint primarily.
Right.
But I'm so grateful for people that have taken and really done a job, and they've gone through it and really filled in the blanks and
Okay, let's take one more peek at Chuck Missler here. I would like to hear him. Maybe it's right here. Okay, so give me one moment here. Let's see.
It'll be just a tyranny too.
Tell us why tyranny. Expound. Iraq. Obama tells him 14 months in advance when he's leaving. He leaves, and these radical Islams beheading, raping, murdering, crucifying, taking over most of Iraq and Syria. What is your take on ISIS long term? Short.
Well, I don't know. It's again that is a derivative of Islam. As long as you've got Islam, you're going to have these tensions.
Part of it.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean.
Sure, of course. Of course. Yeah, I think so.
And
it's part of a whole tide that's coming.
The cruelty of the
one mistake. I respect Joel Richardson and his material. He does a great job. We believe that the what we call the Antichrist is going to include more than just Islam. I think it's going to be a larger umbrella, and so to speak.
Yeah, and I agree.
They keep saying that Christianity is the problem. Christianity is the problem.
They never talk about Christians.
Yeah.
Yeah, they never talk about Christians. Yeah, no, exactly right. And that's just, again, and they also don't really talk about the Shiite-Sunni split. It's astonishing. You can't sitting in the Oval Office.
Amen.
And
so I do it on a daily basis. Current world events.
Media, like the work that you do, is so crucial.
Thank you.
We need more.
We need more of us out there doing it, don't we?
Yes, we do. Actually, we really do.
Something I'd like to take a look also at one more subject here before we wind up here at a time flying. Turkey. Can we talk about Turkey? With this, what is their leader, their prime minister? I think I can't pronounce his name. I think it's Erdogan or Erdogan.
Erdogan.
Is he a narcissist or is he a messiah complex? What is his role? Who is he?
I don't know. I don't know him personally. I haven't studied him enough to be competent there. But no question about that. Turkey is a pivotal aspect of the whole strategic picture for lots of different reasons. They're the major military capability there. They are a member of NATO, but very unusual position. And they're very much a pivot to the whole strategic picture of the Middle East. No question about it.
Wow.
And understanding Turkey and understanding its leadership and what its agenda is important. And it's interesting that it's my understanding that Turkey's the one that shot down a non-trivial issue, shot down the Russian transport plane. So there's some things that are starting to brew here, but Turkey is a key thing to watch, and so I think that's another key.
Some people think that it's Turkey, that if there is, and I'm not saying it's an agreement, it's not a peace treaty. It's when we talk about 927, Daniel 927, we start talking about this covenant with many. Some people think that Turkey is the one that's kind of the kingpin, is the one that really has to monitor this in the Middle East. I don't know.
I don't quite see it that way, but I think it's well worth watching. And I think it's important for us to understand that the purpose of prophecy is not prediction. Divination is prohibited in the Torah. What we are required to do is be responsible to prepare for coming storms. And so we need to understand that coming storms are coming.
That is what a powerful statement. The purpose of prophecy is not to make predictions, for divination is prohibited in the Torah, but is to prepare for upcoming storms. In other words, through the lens of prophecy, see what's coming. We have a responsibility to our families and our communities to be prepared for storms that are coming. And it's clear that there are storms that are coming. Amen. But that's not the same thing as trying to unravel prophecies to predict the future, because that's a domain that God reserves for himself. He alone knows the end from the beginning. Yes. But it is our job to do our homework and be prepared for the storm. And there are storms coming. The darkness is encroaching. We need to understand that. Do you feel
in our approach? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, do you feel America? I mean, you talked about America in upcoming judgments. So like our judgment has been delayed, even like we should have already been in judgment. It's just the grace of God, isn't it? Maybe it's the prayers of the saints.
Yes. I believe the abandonment wrath of God has begun. The abandonment wrath is what he did to Samson on that last visit to Delilah. He simply removed his protection.
Wow.
Can you imagine how that
lifted his hand?
The northern kingdom went into idolatry.
Yep.
And God appointed Hosea from the south to go up there and lay out his indictment. Hosea didn't go up there and preach that unless you do this or do that, this is going to. No. And he said, leave Ephraim alone because he's joined idols. So what God did to the northern kingdom was just remove his protection, and that caused them to be eliminated from history by the Assyrians. 100 years later, the same thing happened to the southern kingdom, in a sense, with Habakkuk and the southern kingdom. We need to understand that one of God's maneuvers is to remove his protection, and I think his abandonment wrath, as we call it, may have already begun for America. And I think that's our problem. We've offended him. We've done everything we can imagine to do to offend him, and so and I can get into a whole other thing on that, but we're running out of time here, I think.
So in other words, what you're saying, the judgment of God doesn't have to be God sending plagues upon the land or a drought or something, although he can do that, but simply by abandoning, lifting his hand of protection. Just lifting his hand.
Remove his protection, yeah.
Wow.
And there's a very specific judgment of God for those cultures that fail to recognize him as creator.
Chuck, we lost you for a second there, and you were finishing that point.
I was surprised. I suddenly found I had a dead phone.
I'm sorry. Was
it something I said?
No.
I must have offended you, yeah.
No, it wasn't nothing you said. Matter of fact, you had a great point going, and I wanted to hear it, and we lost the connection. So if you want to finish that point, it would be great.
Well, it's a great point. Now you're saying that Romans chapter 1, verse 18 to 32 is a judgment of God, a specific judgment of God that he declares.
This is Chuck Missler, and it was an interview I did with him, the only interview I ever did with Chuck Missler, the great Bible prophecy scholar. This guy was an worked for NASA, worked for Ford. He was on the board of directors of Ford Motor Company. He was just a brilliant man, brilliant in the secular world before being saved and then set apart by God to be a Bible prophecy teacher and touch the world. He really did. And that was October the 20th, 2015. So just about 6 years ago, the only time I interviewed the great Reverend Chuck Missler. He's went on to be with the Lord. And, we've been privileged to have these kind of relationships with Dr. Lester Sumrall, Henry Groover, Chuck Missler, Jack Van Impe, Dr. Irvin Baxter, all of them I got opportunity to spend some time with just before they left the world. It's quite interesting that there seems to be an impartation that all of us get when we hear these wonderful men and women of God who have really stood the test of time. I will find that where he talks about Ezekiel 38. And I'll try to have that for you tomorrow. I'll be doing a live show tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern. I'll try to have that. I will have that. I'll find it and have that ready for you. And we'll hear some more from Chuck Missler. All right. It's good to listen to some of the voices of the past because you'll hear the prophecy of the future still there. It's amazing. He made some great points there. All right, guys, I'm going to let you go. But it looks like it's very possible that the Taliban has just opened the door to accelerate. We're turning the corner. You may have just opened the door to Ezekiel 38. Give your life to Jesus Christ because we truly are living in the last days. God bless all of you. See you tomorrow.